program. About 1900, for the first time, there was mass-market good shaving equipment. A lot of people cleaned up. But it was really World War I that created the real need for short hair, because you can't fight a war with long hair, especially a modern war. Bugs live in it. It gets in your eyes when you're trying to shoot. But most critically, they could not figure out how to manufacture helmets to head and hair variation. So they settled on standard head size for the production of helmets. But look at what happened. Millions of good guys got short hair. In the 1930s, they did it themselves, scrubby but short. The 1940s, go look at a high school annual from 1945 from anywhere. The guys are standing around, sleeves rolled up, and you can see scalp all the way across. Why? Because they're modeling, imitating their heroes, the men who were fighting. Then we moved into the 1950s. There was less and less need for short hair. It began to creep down a little bit. 1956, how could that nice man, Ed Sullivan, let that sleazy hood on TV? It was absolutely disgusting. Elvis Presley moved his hips and we can watch because Marley ruined the whole country. Have you been to a movie recently? They're moving a hell of a lot more than hips in movies today. But there was Elvis, and the other rock stars would follow. By 1962, the Beatles were revolutionizing the youth of the world, and the adults were simply losing track of what was happening. In the 1960s, young men discovered the most amazing thing. They discovered that long hair irritated the hell out of all these people. It just drove these people over here crazy. Because all these people had been programmed to believe if you're a good guy, you got to have short hair. Their own kid had it halfway down his back, and they were going, my God, where did I go wrong? The answer was nowhere. Hair, language, behavior, all of it, everything was rooted in our gut-level value systems. We relate to everything in the world with our values, and if we don't understand the value systems within ourselves and with other people, then we are simply misunderstanding how to get along in today's world. We relate to everything, personally, business, whatever. You know, a number of examples that I've used in the classroom before, I've gone back through time and picked up expressions that were used by large numbers of people that sort of reflected a value view of the world. And this next one I like because it's basically related to the economic system, which we're all very concerned about, and it shows how people responded to the economic system. And when I was using this example in the classroom, I'd look out at my class and say, okay, class, how many of you know what the expression, the eagle shits on Friday night means? And they would go, eagle does what? They have no idea what that expression means. They have no idea what was happening in the world prior to the time they were born. A lot of people over here know what it means. They know that this is what it means. Money, money. Think about money. Think about how we worked for money, sweated for money. We're physically paid with money. If you do that, the value of money is very different than if another system is in operation. And it is, because the eagle doesn't shit on Friday night anymore. The computer burps on Saturday morning. There are now recorded examples of 10-year-old kids in this country using credit cards. Not many, but a few of them are out there going, bing, 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 God, or somebody's paying for it. They don't know, it's just magic. Test this with a kid. Tell a kid today you're out of money, and listen to him say, charge it, write a check. You don't need money. When credit cards were first introduced, the American banking system, with the best advice that money could buy, totally, completely screwed up. And literally millions of dollars have been wasted since that point in time trying to get people to relate to these very simple little pieces of plastic. What happened was, in the summer of 1967 and then through the fall, these cards were automatically mailed to anyone with an approved credit limit on their checking account. People down in their 30s were the youngest to get it at that point in time. They couldn't wait. Fly now, pay later. You only go around once in life. Live it with all the gusto you've got. You've got a lot to live. Pepsi's got a lot to give. Live, enjoy, experience. And that became the ticket. What did these people do when they got their credit cards in the mail? When these people got their credit cards in the mail, they tore them up, sent them back, and threw them away. Because at a gut level, at a value level, they knew, one, credit was wrong, and two, if you buy something, you use this, not this silly damn thing. Just recently, the American Bankers Association admitted for the first time publicly, based upon their market research, that in these two generations, probably 70%, nearly three-fourths of these people have never used or so have infrequently used these very simple little pieces of plastic. They might as well not have had them. We relate to everything in the world with our values, absolutely everything. And if we don't understand the values in other people, then we are simply not cueing in to how to relate to them. You know, as another example, we can look at reactions to music. You know, let's say that over the past few years, You really came out with a nifty little product. You developed this thing that was just terrific. Every housewife was going to want one. So you go to the best people in advertising in this country. And those people looked at you and said something like, wow, you know, you want to advertise on radio and TV? And you said, yeah, and I want to use a rock beat for the basic audio background of my radio television commercials. They would have told you that it wouldn't work, that you would only appeal to teenagers, perhaps people in their early 20s. But then they did some research, and it turned out to be value research. They discovered there's a much higher level of acceptance of commercials with rock beat in our system. That in fact, there are millions of people in America who know Chicago is not just a city, The Who is not a question, The Kiss is not a physical act, and sticks don't rub together. And if you think any of that's true, you're over here with Lawrence and the Bubble Machine floating out. Right now, it's women in their mid-40s and younger relate to commercials with a rock beat. Why? Because those people were in high school back in the mid-50s. They just about had their values all together. But at that point in time, they were intensely socialized. And in 1956, people now in their mid-40s checked into Heartbreak Hotel with Elvis Presley. And they stayed with him. They didn't check out. They were there when he died. They cried when he died. When Elvis Presley died, young people said, hell, he was 42, fat over the hill, big deal. But these people were there with him emotionally. 20 years from now, they're going to be out in Sun City, and they're going to sit there with their little transistor and rock to a rock beat. Because to those people, that music is good, right, normal. What do you think is good, right, normal about music, about money, about morals, about your job, about your family, about God, about anything in the world you want to look at? You are absolutely 100% correct and normal. But if you truly want to be effective in today's world, if you sincerely want to understand other people, it seems absolutely critical that we accept the reality that all these other people out there who are different from the way we are just as right, correct, and normal as us. We're all right. We're all normal. But we're very different because what we are now is directly rooted in where we were when we were gut level value programmed. It's a general model, doesn't give specific answers, but is a beginning for going beyond the surface, the superficial, to the gut level, the value level. It seems to offer some insight. So I hope for just a few minutes you've stopped, pull back, and look objectively at other people and ask that one basic question. Where were they when they were value programmed? If you'll try it, it'll work. Simple. As the aspirin commercials say, life got tougher, we got stronger. Well, perhaps we can be more effective in dealing with other people if we understand why and how they behave as they do and how to position them in today's world. For example, we know that everyone during the first 20 or so years goes through a series of value programming processes. That they pick up information from their family, from friends, from church, religion, the school systems, electronic media, certainly critical in today's world. That once those values lock in, they then use those values as adults to relate to the world around them. So taking that basic approach, we then look at each generation in our society. People in their 60s grew up during the 1920s. And because of that, they relate to look at the world in a particular way. People in their 40s value programmed through the 1940s. Certainly a very different period with some similarities to the earlier times. We know that young people today have experienced dramatically different shifts in terms of their value programming experiences. So using that knowledge, we can understand why and how they relate to the world of today as they do. For example, if I'm dealing with a 58-year-old, I look at that 58-year-old and I say, okay, I know where you were when you were value programmed, how you suffered, walked to school 5 miles through the snow, did without, all those things. Therefore, I know why you're a little senile in terms of relating to today's world. Or if I'm dealing with a 25-year-old, I look at him and I say, I know where you were, what happened to you, how frustrated you were, all the confusion, all the trauma, all the turmoil. I know why you're really an arrogant son of a bitch in terms of your attitudes toward jobs and a whole series of other aspects of life. We could do that on an individual basis. But in reality, what we probably can do is look at groups of people within our society and talk about how each group relates to the world using a series of commonly held values. Now, before we look at specific groups, age clusters, let's also remember that we need to consider another factor. Basically, as we look at people, we can take a particular point of view that is important only to us. For example, if I personally analyze the entire system, I'm going to be using my viewpoint, white, male, middle-class American. But there are certainly other people within our society. If this line represents white, male, middle-class Americans moving through time and how they were value programmed, then we can consider another group. Minorities, women, Women, for example, would not occupy this same line because there were different influences in society on them as a group. Relatively speaking, women moved not on the same level as the white males, but at a lower level. They were held down technologically, legally, economically, from an educational point of view. A number of major forces in the society kept these people at a lower level. So women get the vote during the 1920s. They moved up a little bit. During the 1930s, they probably dropped. It was important that they helped hold the home together during the Great Depression. Then with Rosie the Riveter, women start moving up again in the society. And finally, with the disruptions, the changes of the 1950s, 60s, and through the 70s, we find women as a group moving closer to the white male middle-class line. Likewise, another subgroup within the system, blacks. Blacks were also held down technologically, economically, legally, educationally. So those people would occupy, compared to the white males, a lower position. Blacks moved along during World War II, moved up dramatically because of the need to fight and also